General Hospital spoilers for Monday, August 11th, show a close call for Jocelyn Jacks and Britt Westbourne, as well as an angry demand from Jason Morgan. Jack Brennan will also make a confession. So let's talk about what's next on the CBS soap. For openers, the drama will continue in Laura Collins' office, where she will insist that Liesl Obrecht earn her place in Rocco Falconeri's life. Meanwhile, Nina Reeves will warn Ava Jerome about troublemaker Cody Bell. Although Nina will advise Ava to be cautious, Ava will think she can manage Cody and may explain that they are simply having fun. Of course, Ava will be unaware that Cody is carrying out a seduction strategy for Christina Corinthos Davis, so the revelation will undoubtedly shake things up sooner or later. Meanwhile, Tracy Quartermaine will chastise Cody for his Ava obsession and argue that he is better than that. Will Cody be able to keep Tracy in the dark about his actual interest in Ava? Alexis Davis will understand Molly Lansing Davis supports Drew Kane's move to Washington, D.C. Molly may admit it would be best for many people if Drew moved away, while she will most likely want Scout Kane could stay. Could Alexis consider requesting custody of Scout in light of her upcoming legal actions? Brennan left Carly Spencer looking frightened, having just intimated that he hadn't been totally honest with her. Carly may persuade Brennan that she can handle whatever confession he is about to make, but Brennan isn't so sure. Of course, this must be a ruse, because Brennan would never reveal anything about Jocelyn Jack's covert agent job, or the current assignment she is on. Brennan will reveal something to Carly, but it is unlikely to be a major problem in the end. Jason will demand answers at the Quartermaine home now that Anna Devane has changed her mind. Anna believes Jason should try to find Britt as soon as possible, so he will suspect she is withholding some information she has learnt. Tell me everything you know and how you know it, Jason demands in the Monday GH teaser video. Even if Anna does not divulge the details of her conversation with Brennan, she could provide Jason with general updates on her latest Dalmatia hint. Anna will encourage Jason to dig at the resort, but she will also advise him to proceed with caution. Jocelyn and Vaughn have just arrived at 5 Poppies to check in. Britt is standing right there with a scary Pascal, but her face is turned away and she's wearing a huge hat. That could be GH's method of keeping this a close call rather than a full-fledged confrontation. Britt may flee before Jocelyn has a chance to recognize her, postponing their face-to-face shock for another day. According to General Hospital spoilers, Jocelyn will experience some irritation once this mission begins, so keep an eye out for the challenges ahead. It was meant to be a stealthy handover. Britt, with her General Hospital insider knowledge, had discovered something sensitive records indicating a cover-up involving a major player in Port Charles. Jocelyn, the ever-faithful friend, had agreed to forward the information to someone who could assist, someone outside the convoluted web of local politics and criminality. They had chosen the alley for its privacy, a location where prying eyes would not linger. But when Britt placed the envelope in Jocelyn's palm, a shadow moved in the background. Then another. The sound of boots scuffing against pavement sent shivers down Jocelyn's spine. Britt's eyes widened as her medical instincts kicked in, and she grabbed Jocelyn's arm, pushing her towards the nearest exit. The men pursuing them were not amateurs. Their movements were organized and their presence was deliberate. Jocelyn's mind raced as she sought to figure out who may be behind this. Was it related to the documents? Was this personal a vengeance against her family? Jack's name carried weight in Port Charles, but it also served as a target on her back. Britt, too, had enemies. Her background wasn't perfect, and her connections to the hospital's darker secrets made her a liability to some. The 2 women ran into the alley, avoiding overturned trash cans and leaping over puddles, their breath coming in short gasps. A gunshot boomed out, piercing the night. Jocelyn stumbled and stopped herself, her hand touching the rough brick wall. Britt pulled her forward, her voice low and demanding. Continue moving. Don't look back. They rounded a corner, only to find themselves at a dead end. A chain-link fence loomed ahead, too high to climb swiftly. The footsteps behind them were louder and closer. Jocelyn's heart was pounding as she examined their surroundings, anxious for an escape. Britt, ever resourceful, noticed a rusting fire escape ladder just beyond reach. Without saying anything, she pushed Jocelyn toward it, her hand steady despite her fearful expression. They scrambled up, the metal creaking under their weight, just as their pursuers approached the base of the ladder. Another gun rang out, this time striking the railing just inches from Jocelyn's hand. She swallowed down a scream and forced herself to concentrate on the climb. They stumbled onto a rooftop at the top, with the city skyline stretching out before them under a moonless sky. The men below began shouting, their voices rough and authoritative. Jocelyn's thoughts turned to her mother, Carly, and how she would approach a situation like this. Head-on, fearless, no matter the odds. But Jocelyn wasn't Carly yet. She was terrified, her hands trembling as she followed Britt across the rooftop, looking for an alternative way down. Britt, despite her bravado, was just as rattled, her sharp wit replaced by a terrible determination to survive. They discovered a door leading to a stairwell, which was locked. Britt grumbled under her breath before taking a hairpin from her pocket and stooping to work on the lock. Jocelyn stood vigil, her gaze drawn to the edge of the roof as the sounds of their pursuers got closer. The lock snapped open just as a man appeared on the far end of the rooftop. Britt shoved Jocelyn in the door and slammed it shut behind them. They dashed down the stairs, their footsteps echoing down the tight stairway. The structure was old with dimly lighted corridors that smelled of mildew. They dashed out into another lane, this time leading to a large street with spotlights flashing in the distance. Safety was nearby but not close enough. The men remained behind them, their yells becoming fainter but no less frightening. Jocelyn's legs hurt and her lungs ached, but she pushed on, motivated by the urge to survive. They arrived at the street just as a black SUV slammed to a halt ahead of them. For a second, Jocelyn believed it was over, that their pursuers had caught up. But the driver's door sprang open, and Jason Morgan emerged, his face a mask of controlled rage. His presence was like a storm breaking, with raw strength and unwavering determination. He didn't need to ask what had happened. The terror in Jocelyn's eyes and Britt's unkempt appearance spoke for themselves. He barked an order for them to get inside the car, his voice piercing through the confusion like a sword. Jocelyn paused for a few seconds, her happiness at seeing him offset by the understanding that his involvement meant this was more than she had imagined. As they got into the SUV, Jason's gaze fixed on the alley, where shadows still moved. He didn't draw his gun, yet, but his palm rested on the holster at his side, a quiet warning of what would happen if anyone approached too closely. The engine screamed as he pressed the accelerator, the tires screaming on the pavement. Jocelyn clasped the packet in her hands, its contents felt like a ticking time bomb. Britt, in the passenger seat, was struggling to recover her breath, her hands shaking as she pulled her hair out of her face. Jason did not talk for a long time, his gaze locked on the road, but the stress emanating from him was evident. When he finally spoke, his tone was low and menacing. "Who were they?" he urged, his tone leaving no room for denial. Jocelyn gulped hard, unsure where to start. She stuttered forth what little she knew about the documents, the alley, and the men who had appeared out of nowhere. Britt filled in the gaps, her voice calmer but yet tinged with fear. She detailed how she discovered the records, and how they pointed to someone powerful in Port Charles who wanted them quiet. Jason's jaw tightened, and his hands gripped the steering wheel so firmly that his knuckles turned white. He didn't need names to recognize this was a problem, one that could spin out of control if not handled wisely. He drove the SUV into a secluded parking lot, shut off the engine and turned to face them. His icy, calculating gaze dug into Jocelyn first, then Britt. "You're both in over your heads," he continued, his voice gravelly. "Don't go near this again. Nothing. Neither the documents nor the people involved. Do you hear me?" It wasn't a plea, it was an order, based on years of expertise in a world where mistakes cost lives. Jocelyn wanted to argue, to say she could handle it, but the recollection of the gunfire and the guys in the alley stopped her. Britt too nodded, though her look suggested she wasn't quite ready to let go. Jason's rage was not just about the danger they had been in, it was also about what this signified for the larger picture. Port Charles was a powder keg, and whatever Britt found was a match. He knew the characters in this town and how far they would go to keep their secrets. He'd spent years cleaning up disasters like this, and he wasn't going to let Jocelyn, his best friend's daughter, be caught in the crossfire. His requirement was clear, they had to keep out of it or he would make sure they did. The weight of his words fell on them, heavy and final. However, the night was not without shocks. As they sat in the SUV, they heard another engine approaching. Jason reached for his revolver, but he relaxed slightly as he noticed a car approaching them. It was Brennan, his old WSB colleague whose loyalties were as hazy as the waters of Port Charles Harbor. Brennan walked out, his typical charm replaced by a stern scowl. He didn't bother with greetings, instead shifting his gaze between Jocelyn and Britt before resting on Jason. "We need to talk," he stated softly but urgently. What happened next was a confession that turned the night's events upside down. Brennan revealed that he had been following in Britt's footsteps, but his motivations were far from selfless. He'd been working an angle, playing both sides to keep himself safe while gathering information for the WSB. Britt discovered which documents. They weren't simply about a cover-up. They were linked to an operation Brennan had been involved in, one that had gone wrong years before and was now returning to haunt him. He hadn't expected Jocelyn and Britt to be caught in the crossfire, but his presence in Port Charles had attracted attention, and now the wrong people were asking questions. Jason listened, his expression impassive, but the strain in his stance revealed his mounting rage. Brennan's revelation was more than simply about the past. It was a warning. The men in the alley were not random thugs. They were hired muscle, dispatched by someone who knew exactly what those documents contained. And if Brennan was involved, the stakes were bigger than anyone had anticipated. The WSB did not play small, nor did the adversaries they created. Jason's mind was already working, putting together the links and calculating the risks. He didn't totally trust Brennan, but he needed him to get through this problem. Jocelyn and Britt sat in startled silence as Brennan's comments sank in. They had almost paid the ultimate price for something they hardly understood, and now they were advised to back off and let Jason and Brennan handle it. Jocelyn found it difficult to accept. She'd grown up in a world full of peril, but she'd always assumed she could deal with it on her own. Britt too was struggling with her own impulses. She'd spent years clawing her way to respectability, and giving up this struggle felt like conceding defeat. As the first light of dawn appeared over the horizon, the four of them sat in the parking lot, each dealing with the events of the previous night in their own unique way. Jason's rage had not subsided, but it had been moderated by a cold pragmatism. He would defend Jocelyn and Britt at whatever cost, but he knew this was only the beginning. Brennan's confession had paved the way for a wider plot, drawing them all deeper into the shadows of Port Charles. For the time being, however, they were alive, which was sufficient. The envelope remained in Jocelyn's lap, its contents a subtle reminder that certain secrets were worth killing for, while others were worth dying to defend. The trip back to town was silent, with each of them deep in their thoughts. Jocelyn glanced out the window, her thoughts repeating the chase, the gunfire, and the panic. She wondered if she'd ever feel safe again, or if this was just another chapter in the never-ending story of Port Charles. Britt, alongside her, was already thinking ahead, going over the facts of the paperwork and wondering if she'd made a mistake in entrusting Jocelyn with it. Brennan, in the front seat, focused on the road, his confession hanging thick in the air. And Jason was already plotting his next move, his rage a silent fire that would burn until he discovered the truth. The city awoke around them, oblivious to the drama that had played out in the shadows. For Jocelyn and Britt, the close call served as a wake-up call, reminding them that no one in Port Charles was ever completely secure. For Jason, it was a call to action, a desire to protect those he loved about at any cost. And for Brennan, it was a reckoning, a moment when his history caught up with him, forcing him to face the repercussions of his actions. The night had altered them all, and as the day rose, they knew one thing for sure. This wasn't finished. General Hospital spoilers are available for Monday, August 11th, 2025. Fans should expect Britt Westbourne to be in jeopardy. Vaughn and Jocelyn Jack start their expedition at the Five Poppies. Also, Alexis Davis considers a legal strategy to halt Drew Kane. Continue reading and let's discuss what's coming up on the ABC soap drama. Alexis Davis's legal move. Let's begin with Alexis, who is attempting to prevent Drew from taking Scout Kane to DC with him. The lawyer had gone to meet Monica Quartermain, but she was not accepting visitors that day. So Alexis complained to Jason Morgan about the issue. It is implied that Alexis will next consider a legal move. Could she seek custody of Scout or petition the court to prevent Drew from taking the little girl out of the state? Later, Alexis will ask Molly Lansing Davis a difficult question. Molly appears to be at odds with her mother. Laura Collins warning over in the mayor's office. Laura Collins clarifies things for Liesl Albrecht. Instead of a civil agreement, Laura is now mediating a full-fledged conflict between Liesl and Lulu Spencer. The mayor insists that if Liesl wants a position in Rocco Falconeri's life, she must earn it. Britt Westbourne's Danger General Hospital spoilers for Monday, August 11th show that she is in danger at the Five Poppies Resort. The brunette stood up to the resort's manager but was intimidated. Britt could be in great risk. Jocelyn didn't recognize Britt with her huge, floppy hat, but they were bound to cross paths again. That could put Jocelyn in even more risk. On Monday, August 11th, 2025, fans will watch Anna Devane offer a warning to Jason. The right man will want to know what Anna knows and how she obtained that information. Tracy Quartermain is disappointed in Cody Bell. Meanwhile, Ava Jerome convinces Nina Reeves that she can handle Cody. There's also Jack Brennan's confession. Carly Spencer tries to reassure him, but Jack says, "After I tell you, I'm not sure you will." Will Jack tell Carly the truth about Jocelyn? Or will he create a smart cover story? Jason's voice pierced through the tense stillness like a dagger, his tone low yet authoritative enough to make even the most stubborn individual reconsider. His gaze focused on Brennan, who sat at the table with an almost aggravating serenity, a tiny smirk tugging at the edges of his mouth. Jason had come for answers, and he would not go until he had them. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, and every second stretched out as Jason approached, his presence alone demanding the truth. Brennan's eyes did not waver, but there was a flicker of something, possibly resignation or calculation, before he spoke. What he divulged sent shockwaves through the room. A confession that ended weeks of mistrust and speculation in an instant. Laura, standing only a few steps away, felt her stomach twist. Her fury flared up, intense and unrestrained, as Brennan's comments verified her darkest suspicions. She had battled so hard to protect the residents of Port Charles, to keep the town from falling apart, and now she saw how deep the treachery went. Her voice rose, not in fear, but in rage, every word dripping with astonishment that someone could act so selfishly and without regard for the repercussions. The treachery was more than simply political, it was personal. She shifted her gaze from Brennan to the others in the room, as if daring them to try to rationalize what had transpired. Meanwhile, Ava stood to the side, arms folded, a knowing smirk on her lips. She didn't have to say anything. Her expression spoke everything. She had seen this coming, perhaps even predicted it, and seeing the truth come to light was, in her opinion, vindication. People had long questioned her instincts and discounted her intuition, and now she could enjoy the satisfaction of seeing the consequences prove her correct. Her eyes gleamed with the satisfaction of winning, a game no one else was aware you were playing. However, underlying that gratification came a layer of something more complicated. Relief that she wasn't the one under fire this time, as well as curiosity about how bad things could get. Brennan's confession was not given with remorse. If anything, it was deliberate, even choreographed, as if he knew this day was coming and had predetermined how much to reveal and when. His coolness in the face of Jason's interrogation simply added to the tension. Jason's jaw tightened and his patience dwindled by the second, for while Brennan was speaking, he wasn't giving it all, not yet. Jason could tell. Every instinct in him shouted that there was still a piece missing, something Brennan was keeping hidden, possibly the most essential piece of all. The air between them was electrifying, with every glance and word bearing the weight of unspoken threats and unfinished business. Laura's wrath had turned to steely resolve. Ava's smug amusement lingered like perfume in the room, and Jason's determination burned brighter than ever. Jason was ready to break apart what Brennan felt he could control, piece by piece, until nothing remained hidden.